What's up, everybody? Welcome into Tom Curran's Patriots Talk Podcast. This is the aftermath, and it's the aftermath of a 15-10 loss for the Patriots to the Miami Dolphins. It drops the Patriots to 1-4, and let's get it out of the way right out of the chutes. The conversation that will be at the front of people's minds a little bit, the Jalen Polk touchdown that was not. Here's the pool report. Mike Reese interviewing Vice President of Officiating George Stewart. Question from Mike: what was the rule applied in the decision to overturn the touchdown catch by Jalen Polk? Stewart replying, quote, the rule that was applied was the toe heel rule. What happened was he did have 1 foot down on the field of play, and at the completion of the second step, he had his toe in the field of play, but his heel came down on the white line out of bounds. So he did not have 2 feet inbounds at the conclusion of the catch. There's a couple more that just revisit that, but here's my feeling on that whole play. If that's the rule, that's the rule. And if you're wondering, well, why doesn't the play end when his toe hits? I get you. Because you remember Julio Jones' catch in the Super Bowl when he was on the sideline. And all he did was get his toes in. Well, the interesting thing on that is his heel never came down. He hit his toes and then fell forward. Had he been turned around and landed with his toes in bounds and fell backwards and his heels hit, he'd have been out of bounds. The rule is the rule is the rule. It sucks. It would have been terrific to see the Patriots escape with a 17-15 win. But the rule's the rule. And maybe they should change it. You know, when you're at the front of the end zone, all you got to do is wave the ball over the front of the goal line. You don't even have to puncture the goal line. Just wave it over the white line. That's a touchdown. You can dive out of bounds because the goal line goes around the planet, believe it or not. It does. That's what they say. The goal line is infinity. So if you're on the 1 yard line and you dive headlong sideways, you don't have to reach the ball back over the pylon, even though guys do. The goal line goes around the world. You penetrate it, it's a touchdown. Be that as it may, the Patriots get semi-hosed on the call. Not hosed on the call. They get semi-hosed on the rule. But let us not allow that to overshadow how winnable this game is and why it's so maddening that they didn't win. The Patriots won a game at Cincinnati. We all saw it. Then they lost a game to Seattle in which they played really well but had 2 mistakes. I gave them a pardon, a pass, when they lost Juwan Bentley and on a short week got carved up by Aaron Rodgers, because I kind of could smell that one coming, especially after what Geno did to him the week before. Aaron Rodgers is better. And then again, I wasn't that stunned that they got their asses handed to them by San Francisco, because San Francisco is good. It was somewhat humiliating, but they were outgunned. In this game today, the Patriots actually summoned a pretty resourceful performance. You had a block punt. You had an early game interception. You had sacks forcing Miami off the field. You had Miami complicit in its own stupidity, missing field goals, snapping the ball past Tyler Huntley. All you had to be in this game as Miami was trying to hand it to you, and you were vastly undermanned because of all the injuries you had. This was a nice, spunky, gritty win that a gritty, smart team would have escaped with. But gritty doesn't get you anywhere if you're dumb. And this was a dumb performance. The 12 penalties for 104 yards. The context the penalties were committed in, the Keon White with 230 yards worth of penalties. 2 fouls, a horse collar, and a roughing the passer. And again, we can get in the weeds, so I don't know, was it really roughing the passer? Kind of almost looked like a headbutt. They moved away too quickly, but if it's in doubt, you should be coming in sternum height, not head height, not jumping. If you're jumping, you better be jumping in a direction that's not going to carry you into the quarterback's head. He did not do that. The Christian Ellis pass interference where he didn't know where he was supposed to line up and then went tear-assing across the field and demolished Raheem Mostert as the ball got there. And someone asked Mayo in the postgame about it a little bit, and I don't know if they're contending that Mostert was within the 5 yard or the 1 or 2 yard line of scrimmage where he could be hit, but it was a blatant obliteration. There were also drops. Jalen Polk had a couple of drops. Demario Douglas seemed to me on the downfield throw on that bootleg by Jacoby Brissett as if he flattened out at the 10. He was basically not running a route, just running downfield. And Jacoby's going to whip it as far as he can. Where exactly are you going, Demario? Because that should not have missed by that much. Anyway, you also had Demario Douglas, and it was a hard play, no doubt. But you see gritty teams when they are given opportunities to make plays in games when they need wins, make them. Demario Douglas was not able to hang on to a difficult third down catch. Hit both hands, in both hands, didn't stay. Christian Gonzalez had the opportunity for a pick in the end zone. Tyreek Hill got his mitts in there and knocked that thing away. If you're going to be a team like this, which you got no choice, you're going to be a bottom feeder, to get yourself out of bottom feeding, to get off of the algae and maybe start chewing on some bigger fish and sea life, you can't beat yourself. This was a perfect day for an undermanned team. No Barmore, no Bentley, no Duggar, no Peppers, to make some kind of an effort. Well, they did actually make an effort to win a game like this. You know, the throw at the end of the game, Jacoby Brissett throws it down the middle of the field. It's complete. The clock runs out. And that's after a Hunter Henry false start. So it goes on down the line, everybody. You can't be bad and undisciplined and expect to extract yourself from the situation you're in. And they're bad and undisciplined. 12 men on the field for a punt. That's the kind of thing that will really create a lack of patience. And honestly, it does reflect back on the coaching. Ted Johnson and I had a conversation about that. Nobody's telling Keon White to pull people down by the back of their shirt. Nobody's telling Hunter Henry to jump off sides. Nobody's coaching that. But if they're not afraid or on their details or focused enough to not do those things, then it definitely bounces back on the coaching staff. Yeah, they're not being told to do that, but they're doing it. So how do you stop from doing it? That goes back to the coaching staff. And Jerod Mayo seems to understand that, which one would suppose he would. Here's Mayo after the game, talking about specifically the Keon White penalties.
It comes back to discipline. Once again, it's all about discipline. It's about execution. I think those are the right calls.
All right, we bring in Phil Perry now. Senator, we just heard from Jerod Mayo talking about the fact that it's all coming back to discipline. It's all about execution. Patriots didn't do enough of it by a far sight on this day. What was the locker room climate like?
Yeah, frustrated, little weary is what I would say. You know, losing, starting to take a toll. 4 games in a row now. And players, I think maybe are coming off that way, Tom, because there aren't many great answers for them to give to someone like me. Mm-hmm. When you have 12 penalties and you start talking about discipline, I mean, it's obvious, right? That's an issue. Now, really wasn't an issue through the first 4 games of the season, I didn't think. But today, 12 penalties, 105 yards, it sort of blows them away in terms of their chances to actually win this game. I know they were a toe tap away from scoring a touchdown and maybe having the outcome be a little bit different, but you can't, even against the Dolphins, the Tyler Huntley led Dolphins, you can't be that sloppy and hope to win. They're not a fit. They're so bad offensively. They can't survive those kinds of mistakes.
It's funny because this week there was a lot of air expended on whether or not there was a mutinous bent to what was going on with the Patriots, whether they were teetering on the edge of that. And I look at the effort and I look at the individual plays at some junctures, blocked punt, a pick, a terrific run by Ramondre Stevenson, Kendrick Bourne reemerging, Keyshawn Boutte. It didn't look like a mutinous performance to me, but you also see this lack of discipline that it harkens back to 2022, that Las Vegas Raiders game, when the Patriots just melted down at the end and started trying to say, well, I'll do it. I have an idea. Why don't I try this? And that is, it's not mutinous in terms of I'm not listening to the coach, but I'm going to try and do something here. I mean, the 2 Keon White penalties are ridiculous. You have to know better than that. 12 players on the field for a punt, I believe, a punt return results in extending drive after extending drive, Phil, for a bad team. I don't care how hard you tried and how many good plays were made. I'm babbling here. People have already heard this from me. You give me your 2 cents.
No, the personal foul on Keon White was a killer. I mean, the weird part about that too is watching it in real time. It felt like he let up a little bit, and then I saw the replay and I said, "Oh, he didn't really let up because he still unleashed a headbutt on the guy, helmet to helmet." Like, how do you not think that's going to be called? Especially, I believe it wasn't all that long after Jacoby Brissett. Not that he was necessarily paying attention to this at the time, but Jacoby Brissett basically took like a weird like right-handed jab from Jalen Ramsey to the face that gave him 15 yards and ended up being sort of a big play. The headbutt's clearly going to get penalized there. I think you're right. There's a little bit of a looseness or an over-aggressiveness or maybe some combination of the two that have led to, I think it's been a theme, right? Ramondre Stevenson actually loose with the football through 4 games, defensively loose in terms of keeping quarterbacks inside the pocket. They did better on both those fronts today, but today the looseness showed up with all the penalties. So I don't know how you get those things tied up or tied together, and maybe it is just players trying to make too many plays when they know somebody needs to do something because they're just not talented enough to win on a run-of-the-mill sort of performance.
And Keon White might be one of the most talented players on the entire 53-man roster. And, we watched him at the beginning of last week lose contain. Great player in terms of ability and skills, but handing first downs to the other team. Your best defender now with no Bentley, no Barmore, certainly with Peppers out and Duggar out, it's either him or Tavai or Gonzalez are your 3 best defenders. And you can't just be handing out first downs like candy because of preventable errors. And this is one interesting thing about Bill Belichick that always permeated what he did. And I've heard a couple of players say this now. You ask them about a mistake they made, they say, I'm not changing. I'm going to be who I am. I'm going to do what I do. I'm going to be a playmaker. And I remember Ellis Hobbs once in a preseason game, he tried to jump a route, turned into a touchdown. And Ellis Hobbs after the game said, I'll do that again every time. I'm a playmaker. And I happened to learn that Belichick later on said, what the are you talking about? You do it again. You gave up a touchdown. You'd say you'd do it again. What kind of moron are you? Of course you wouldn't do it again. And I think he got benched for a period of time too. But you can't leverage what you want to do with the overall fortunes of the team. This game should not have been winnable. They didn't have Andrews. I don't care about Tyler Huntley. You might disagree. I just think that they were so personnel-wise overmatched that I was stunned that they were going to had a chance to win the game and still almost pulled it out. And then they played like morons.
Yeah, those 2 penalties. So the White penalty led to a field goal, and then the DPI on Christian Ellis was really a killer because that was 3rd and 13. And that allowed them to continue that touchdown drive where the defense was clearly gassed. And I wonder what your take was on that particular penalty because I would call it ticky-tack. I'm trying to be.
Okay. Why?
Because it didn't look to me like in real time. Now you have the benefit of more.
No, he obliterated him. He absolutely
obliterated him. He was definitely early.
Oh my God.
Okay.
Obliterated him. It was like me and Holly are watching it in the green room. I'm like cackling because I have the NFL Jesus up. So I'm watching before and I get the play. It's going to be okay. Christian Ellis is going to do something here. So I'm watching Mostert and I see him come out and I watch Ellis just obliterate him like before it happened. So I knew it was coming. So yes, he killed him.
Okay. To me, from afar, obviously we are where we are. It looked bang, bang. And it looked like, and I know you're not supposed to, as an official, make this calculation in your head as it's happening. But even if he catches the ball there, he's still like 8 yards short of the sticks.
Yeah.
And there's people all around him.
Great point, Phil.
It just felt to me, I mean, it makes it an even worse penalty on Ellis's part, I guess. Like, just, you're right there. I guess let him catch it and then go make the tackle.
You're going to cackle when you see the replay.
Yeah, that's a rough one then. I mean, well, then it's sort of, not good, but it is I didn't want that to be the outlier, especially because it led to a touchdown. But don't let that be the outlier. Oh yeah, that 12 penalties, but it really should have been 11. Okay,
Mhm.
good. If he
It's
earned
the
it,
same
good. It's consistent
same
with
way with the
everything
Jalen
else.
Polk thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, you don't want to sit there and look at the Jalen Polk thing and say, well, they could have won. Yeah, but don't get caught up in some goofy rule interpretation. Who cares? They played really poorly, and whether or not they win this game doesn't do anything except help their draft position. But I wanted to ask you before I go to this other stuff about the offense. I saw Jalen Polk drops. I saw the Demario Douglas. Wasn't a terrible drop. It would have been a great play, but you have to make those plays if you're not a good team to win the games, right?
Yeah, and I think he would even expect to have that one, right? Hits you in both hands. I know he was laying out for it, but yeah, you need those guys to step up and make plays. I thought there were openings there. There were plays to be made offensively. They were great in the run game. Over 7 yards per carry in the run game. I thought they relied actually a little bit too much on the pass late in the second quarter, and then again late in the game, critical situations. There are plays there to be made. It's an interesting game for me, Tom, to kind of look back on, because I think for the most part, through 4 games, through 4 weeks, we could say it's the offensive line, it's the offensive line, it's the offensive line, it's the offensive line. And it was the offensive line again today, but I don't think it was all the offensive line. I charted them for about a 50% pressure rate, which is bad. It was actually 49, 18 pressures on 37 dropbacks. But some of those pressures that I'm including there are well into the play after the ball was snapped, like 3.5, sometimes even 4 seconds into the play. Then a pressure arrives to Jacoby Brissett. And I'm looking at the quarterback and I'm wondering, are there things he could have done to make it better today? And I would say, yes. I don't think I'd put him necessarily at the top of the list, but I do think he could have handled some of those situations a little differently.
It's interesting you point that out, because there was a slant on Jalen Ramsey. I can't remember who ran it. Might have been Demario Douglas. When they were trying to come back, just an easy chunk play slant. And I'm like, where's that? You saw Kendrick Bourne wide receiver screen. You saw another Kayshon Boutte throw to the sideline that was well timed. Back foot hit, balls out. You're like, why didn't that happen more frequently? Anyway, there was an interesting answer from Jerod Mayo when he was asked about his staff in the post game. Here it is.
Look, there are definitely things that I have to do better as a head coach. I would say the staff, they're still, they're getting on the same page. And once again, like I said earlier, it's about getting better every week. And that goes to communication between the staff. And then obviously I have to do a better job as a whole.
Jerod, you guys got down to the 12-yard line at the end of the fourth quarter and called 4 straight passes. Is there any thought of running the ball in that situation since you guys were more productive on the ground?
Well, there were a bunch of conversations, about that. We ended up throwing the ball. That's what we decided to do, and ultimately it's my decision. I would say, we averaged, over 7 yards a carry? I'm not sure. So that definitely was part of the decision, or I should say part of the discussion. We just didn't finish it up.
Phil, I think that there is consternation, at the very least, on the part of Jerod Mayo with the offense, with Alex Van Pelt, with the performance of the offensive line, and how at the end of each week he's having to address this, because the performance isn't improving, and Mayo, being the CEO, has to go to his manager and say, why isn't this improving? And we all see it in different ways, but there is ineptitude. Where that stems from, we don't know. But how do you read the delicate balance between 52-year-old grizzled offensive coordinator Alex Van Pelt, who's seen a thing or two and knows a thing or two about quarterback play, and newly installed head coach Jerod Mayo, who's looking at it and going, I know a thing or two as well, and I can't stand the way it looks? Is it tenuous? What do you think?
It's a good question, because I know there were people around the league who, when Jerod Mayo got the head coaching job, it sort of made their eyes open and say, oh, is he ready? And those are people that are watching from afar and that know that he's only been coaching for 5 years, and don't give his playing experience as much credit as he should probably get when it comes to his readiness for that kind of thing. But I have sensed, in his public commentary at least, deference from Alex Van Pelt when it comes to Jerod Mayo. And I do think those guys are on the same page when it comes to the big picture, and especially when it comes to the development of Drake Maye. Are they on the same page when it comes to the scheme or the in-game choices or the more nuanced parts of Alex Van Pelt's job? That I don't know. I do find it interesting after, going back again to some post-game comments from Jerod Mayo, but after last week, right, his first answer to a question about the pressure that Jacoby Brissett was facing was, schematically, we have to do more to get the ball out of our hands right now. And you just mentioned it. I sensed much more screen game today. Those wide receivers bubble screens right up along the line of scrimmage, or even to the running backs themselves. It did feel like there was a concerted effort to schematically get the ball out. And so I don't know. I don't know how aligned they are in terms of the play-to-play, week-to-week offensive stuff. Do you sense anything there that would lead to?
I just think it's hard. I just think it's a really hard setup. And on Post-Game Live, I mentioned that in 1996, after the autocratic reign of Bill Parcells, the Kraft said, you know what? We're going to have a triangle of authority here. We're going to hire Pete Carroll, and he's a great defensive coach. We're going to hire him to be our head coach. And he had been a head coach for 1 year with the Jets, flamed out with the Jets. So, but Pete was just in charge of the football. There's a man named Andy Wasenchuk who was in charge of the cap. Bobby Greer was in charge of personnel. The offensive coordinator at the time, I think, might have been Carl Smith, or he might have been the quarterback's coach, but there was also a guy named Ernie Zampese who came in 98 or 99. Bottom line is, this triangle of authority was difficult then. And after a few years of it, because there were times that Pete wasn't perceived to be in charge, so people would go to Bobby Greer or to Robert Kraft. And after a few years of that, the Krafts again decided to consolidate power with Bill Belichick. And we've known who the ruler of the football program is: personnel, offense, defense, all of it. And he had 25 years of coaching experience, Bill did, when he took the job in 2000. That team went 5-11, and it had a hell of a lot better team then than it does now. But I think the triangle of authority, especially for a less experienced coach like Mayo, might leave him in a position where he has to be extremely trusting of his lieutenants. And I think Alex Van Pelt's a good guy. I think he's extremely easy to get along with from everything I've heard, but he's trying to build something from the ground up, and he's got just kindling and popsicle sticks and duct tape to build it with. And Mayo has to stand in front of us and explain why it looks so bad sometimes. And Mayo's probably going, why does it look so bad sometimes, Alex? Can we get the other kid in there? So I think it's just a very difficult spot to put a first-year head coach into. And I think that's going to be the overarching conversation that we see all season long, is the Patriots decided to put Jerod Mayo into this position. He's an extremely promising young coach, but has he been put in a position to succeed the way so many other individuals have been? So
how do you feel Alex Van Pelt has done?
What
do you think of the job Van Pelt has done?
I think he's been a little slow to react. He's getting to a point where he's slow to react. I think he's a little bit, and I stuck with it for 3 or 4 weeks, but I think that he is a little bit slow to react. He is married to the way he thinks he ought to do it. He is going to do it that way. Eat your vegetables, get to bed on time, and everything will work out at the end. And I think that way of doing things ignores the aspects of the team that are rearing their ugly heads. Like, why no motion? And it was interesting to hear him ask that earlier this week about motion. And he said, we only do it if we need it. Okay. Why? Don't some people do it to confuse people? I mean, what's the big deal? Make it move around a little bit. Why is it taking so long to get to the perimeter? Why did it take so many weeks for Demario Douglas to get the football? Why, where's LaMichael Hasty? He ain't bad. He's a scat back. Get him the ball. So some of that stuff I think he's been slow to react to, but I can't pan the guy because he is now without Andrews, and he's got practice squad level players all over that offensive line. Bless their hearts, they're busting their ass in some cases. Many cases, I don't know. I'm not an offensive line coach. But Elliott Wolf, being one point of the triangle and Alex Van Pelt the other point, and Jerod the third point of the triangle, this thing's collapsing on itself a bit because each one of those points is up against it right now.
Yeah, with Van Pelt, I look at the end of the half where they had some time to kill, really. They ran it for 8 yards on first down, and then they threw what looked like a pretty low percentage fade down the right sideline, incomplete. And then they threw again, and this was one of those lengthy pressure plays. I think it was over 4 seconds. Jacoby Brissett ends up getting pressure, and I think hit as he threw incomplete again. They end up punting. And I think they took, after the run play, they basically took off 10 seconds on the clock. Beyond that, they kick it back to the Dolphins with 55 seconds left. Bad punt, decent punt return. They're suddenly like ready to score points, and they probably should have. They end up screwing it up themselves, the Dolphins, and they don't score. But I look at that and I say, are you thinking about the clock at all? Do you care about the clock? Are you just so focused on trying to score points, even though you guys are who you are offensively? You think you really?
See, I like this conversation because I look at that conversation because whatever you do, if it doesn't work, you look like a boob. So when you got it into 2nd and 2, if you would run the ball there and not pick up the first down, well, the clock could still be running. I don't think people would second guess you, because my thought was, get to halftime. You're ahead 7-3. Get into the half. You don't have to try and go chunk playing down the field. Know who you are. You're 92 yards away, which is the same thing that I thought they should do against Seattle, which is the same thing that, again, Bill Belichick would have stood there at the end of the game. What are you talking about? We couldn't make a first down. We just need to get to the locker room.
I thought he was right. I honestly, those were some of the few moments I felt like I agreed with Belichick when it came to in-game coaching decisions late in his career here. He wasn't as aggressive as fans wanted him to be, and I totally got it because the offense was horrible. The offense remains horrible. So why are you chucking it down the field like you're going to get in a field goal range with 1 minute left in your own 10-yard line?
So that, to me, I look at it and I'm like, was that operator error by Jacoby? Or did Alex Van Pelt really call plays to try and pick up 10, 12, or 15 yards? Because the fade to Polk, which landed well out of bounds, I thought it was supposed to come out earlier. I mean, all you need is an in-cut someplace, an option route over the middle. That's it.
You just can't be giving away points. And I thought,
well, run the ball.
Approach-wise, they were ready to give away points, by giving the ball back to Miami. And then at the end of the game, they get down to the 12-yard line. It's 1st and 10 at the 12. There's about a minute left, and they have all 3 timeouts. And they're averaging, Tom, they finished the game averaging 7 yards per carry, more than that. And they go 4 consecutive passes. And I know one was a heel click away from changing the game, but you go 4 straight passes, and you end up turning it over on downs when you'd run the ball really well. So I think those are legitimate questions in terms of how you're approaching things. How much say does Mayo have? Does he ever come over the headset and say, "Hey, let's run it here"?
Well, that's why I called for that sound there with him pointing out. I would say we averaged over 7 yards a carry. I'm not sure. That definitely was part of the discussion. Is it time for Drake Maye, Philly?
We're getting very close, Tom. I think I would probably personally give it one more game. And I was somebody who on Monday of this past week argued for him to play today. And then I found out David Andrews was gone for the season. That to me is such an important loss that I think delaying things a couple of weeks just to see if you can get any better. I thought the offensive line, I'll go back and look. I thought the offensive line was a little bit better in the second half than it was in the first. And Jacoby Brissett did at times, even on third downs, when you think the other team's got things dialed up and they got their pressures ready to go, he had time to throw.
He did have time.
And so if they can do that again this coming week against Houston, then I feel better about putting Drake Maye out there and letting him roll, because I just think the physical skill set, given what they have to work with, would help make them a better offense right now. Would you put him in?
I would, but you know what, Phil? You probably don't know this yet because you're busy as hell when you're down there and it's 7:00 and you still haven't had a chance to take a breath. Do you know what Josh Allen's completion percentage was today?
No idea.
He was 9 for 31.
Ooh.
9 for
That's
31.
not good.
And he ended up concussed.
Wait, why are we talking about Josh Allen though?
Because the Houston Texans played. See, this is it, Phil. We
Oh,
all watch
right.
Red Zone. So Houston played the Bills.
I did know that. I did know that.
I know, but we're busy as hell. they devoured Josh Allen.
Gotcha.
So they got Jacoby for dessert. Last question. I was intrigued by the wideout shuffle. Taekwon was down. Taekwon was down. Taekwon, don't need you. You can have a seat. Hey, and Keyshawn Boutte played. I love Keyshawn Boutte. I love Keyshawn Boutte. I do.
Big day for you and the Keyshawn Boutte bus that you are driving and have been driving for quite some time now. Huge day. It's been all oiled up, fresh tank of gas, and that thing is taking off.
Nice block on the Stevenson touchdown.
Great block on the Stevenson touchdown. I thought he really kind of made that play in a lot of ways. I know Stevenson forced 2 missed tackles on his own. That was a big part of it too. Yeah, I mean, I can't get as excited as you because the production was still so lacking.
No, but they're at least making some moves and trying to do some things with their wideouts. I sometimes wonder if Demario Douglas's GPS is just broken. I don't know for sure that he's in the right spots all the time. It looked like he flattened out that deep route that Jacoby was trying to hit him with. Looked like he flattened it out of the 10, and then Jacoby threw it to the end zone, and he had to turn it upfield and had no shot. I think the precision, look, we've talked a lot about the coaching, and we talk about Scott Peters and the offensive line and the shortcomings. I think it's been an ongoing situation with the wideouts that they're just not organized route runners.
I think they had back-to-back big plays to pop, right? 2nd and 20 and then 3rd and 8.
Yeah.
He had 2 catches for a combined 31 yards. And then he came, and then we get into that sequence that I mentioned before where it's 1st and 10 at the 12. And he came out of the game. And I'm pretty sure he was not in the game for those. He might have been in on the final play because there was a false start, and I don't know if they made a substitution, but I don't think he was in for those last 4 pass attempts. So there might be something to that, Tom. Maybe they're looking at the pictures, or they're looking at the tape after every week, and they're saying, boy, he's running the right route, 70% of the time. Is that, we'd probably rather have Austin Hooper out there. It's odd to me. Sometimes they've got 12 personnel on 3rd down. It's like an obvious passing situation. They put Hooper and Hunter Henry on the field. And I just can't believe that that's their best combination. That to me would fall under the category of coaching again, if you want to put it there, is personnel choices.
What does that tell us? If Alex Van Pelt has coached Jacoby Brissett and Austin Hooper, and he understands Hunter Henry as a veteran, this is more of that stuff that we've talked about, I think, where Alex Van Pelt wants to be quote unquote sure, and he's going to err on the side of caution. And if the play doesn't work, because this is where it's an interesting dichotomy between Elliott Wolf, one of the triangles points, says we're going to play the younger players, and Alex Van Pelt putting Austin Hooper and Hunter Henry. Look, and I'm not criticizing those guys, and I don't know those plays until we ask the question, but if Demario Douglas is on the bench for a significant period of time at the end of the game when you need to get in the end zone, that makes less sense to me than I can get my head around.
I think it's probably what you're describing is probably part of the reason, Javon Baker is a healthy scratch again. And it sounds like, based on comments from Alex Van Pelt during the week, he's having trouble still getting aligned properly, understanding where to be and when to be there. When I don't know this for sure, but there might be other coaches around the league who look at his physical skill set and say, even if it's sort of a coin flip, we know where he's going to be. The 50% of the time he's in the right place, it's worth it to us because that guy's fast and he's going to open some things up for us, or we're going to simplify it. We're going to really dumb it down for him, and he's going to help us out. But that they need a little more juice, it feels like, in the receiver room. Maybe Boutte gives it to him. Maybe Baker will give it to him eventually, but they need something in this passing game because sub 5 yards per attempt is not going to get it done anytime soon.
All right. Phil, thank you. I'm sorry to interrupt you there at the end, but I do want to release you. But before I do, we have to do our stock watch, stock up and stock down. Give me 2 for you. Give me a couple of stock ups.
Sure. I'll go stock up Christian Gonzalez. Big pick. Help set them up for that score. I thought he did a really nice job. There was a throw to Tyreek Hill in the end zone that he almost picked. There was another throw to Tyreek Hill in the end zone that he caught out of bounds, I thought, in part because Gonzalez did a good job of sort of, getting a good angle on him and sort of
those were
working
like back to back too.
Yeah. So stock up for me.
Would have
with
liked to
Christian
see him
Gonzalez.
catch that one that Tyreek Hill broke up.
Yeah, nice play by Tyreek Hill there. Do you have a stock up?
Yeah, I'm going to stock you up with Antonio Gibson. Terrific. He just starts so well every game to me. He's just ready to go. Seems like a real pro. I haven't spent a lot of time talking to the guy, but he seems like a very professional individual. And I think they need plenty of that at this juncture, especially on offense.
Let's give Brendan Schooler stock up too. Not many pump blocks that we get to cover here on an annual basis. And that was potentially a big play. They didn't do a whole heck of a lot with it, but nice job by him to get in there and block that one.
Meanwhile, I'm going to slide it to another running back. It's going to be Ramondre Stevenson. Gets my other stock up after being much maligned, deservedly so, for the number of fumbles. He ends up busting in for a 33-yard touchdown at the beginning of the game. Phil, what?
What did you think of his quote-unquote benching? That wasn't much of a benching. I think of one series down, basically.
Yeah, it sounds like somebody showing up late for a meeting. Hey, you got to do what you got to do. I mean, you're right.
I mean, that's not real. I mean, Jerod Maye was talking about sending a message to the locker room. I mean, I don't know.
Tough
Didn't
week.
seem like much of a message.
Tough week for our former Quick Slants co-host. Let's be honest. It's been a tough week for him. And I don't think today, I would not have been surprised if after today's game, Jerod really was more pointed with his team. There's a point at which, and I think we've arrived at it, where he might have to really start to turn the dial, because the low expectations, and I'm not saying they're low, but there is, with all these injuries and the fact that it's almost acknowledged that this is a rebuilding year, guys cannot be, and I've said this a number of times, cannot be accepting of performance. They have to get called on the carpet. And that was one great thing about the way Bill instilled the culture back in 2000. He brook no. Stock down for me, it's going to be Jalen Polk. Couple of drops, no fault of his to not be in at the end of the game, but some of his commentary from the locker room on saying everybody thought it was a touchdown, and no one gave me an explanation as to why it wasn't a touchdown. Are you kidding me? You don't have any curiosity to say, well, why wasn't that a touchdown? No one? You're just going to sit there and think you still scored and they just got it wrong? They didn't get it wrong. They got it right. Figure out what the rule is.
Yeah.
Am I wrong?
You're not wrong. And just so the people out there know, you've got to, in order to be inbounds there, you've got to tap the toe.
Oh, we hit you with the pool report at the beginning.
Oh, okay, good. Well, I thought the pool report was okay, but you got to drag it, right? Toe has to drag right out of bounds, or you got to tap that thing and pick it up and then have something else fall out of bounds.
I used the Julio Jones Super Bowl catch as a really good example of a toe tap. That's a toe tap.
Yeah,
Nothing
he dotted
else,
that thing.
Nothing else hit. Go ahead.
Stock down. We got to put Joey Slide, the kicking guy.
Oh, Jesus.
I know.
All right, fair enough.
I hate to do it, but that was a makeable kick. I didn't see a bad snap or hold there, unless you tell me otherwise, Mr. Benefit of having a million replays at your disposal.
I had actually used the restroom and came in to find out that Joey Slide missed from 33. I thought it was going in. I said, I'll be right back.
So he's a stock down for me. Do you have another stock down? I could probably add one or two if you want me to.
Yes. Also a stock down. Jalen Polk was one catch on 6 targets. Ish.
Couple of those are tough though. The throw that was took him out of bounds.
You're right.
Fade down the sideline. I don't know. There's just not a lot of running free through the secondary for Jalen Polk at this stage.
I'll give Nick Leverett a stock down. He got turnstile a number of times.
Yeah. I think that's a fair one.
Okay.
Keon White. We can't have personal foul penalties and not include them in the stock down category, especially when it's multiple. Right when you throw an S on the end of the IES on the end of penalties, personal foul penalty, and the second one, Tom, is just such a killer on third down. The headbutt on third down, that's another one. Discipline, sending a message. Does Jerod Maye have to do something with Keon White, who last week it was not being able to contain the quarterback? This week it's 2 personal foul penalties that are killers. Should they be benching him?
It's
hard. It's hard. These are your 2 best players, arguably, Ramondre Stevenson and Keon.
Well, that's what sucks is, when you're missing Bentley and you're missing, and Peppers will be back, but when you're missing your lieutenants and they're not playing, and those are the guys who should be able to get over to those players, younger players who are very talented and smart in their own right, and just be counseled by your teammates. It's easier and better, I think. And Mayo's insistence on transparency and calling guys out at the podium, some guys that might work for, and some guys it might not. And I wonder if it works for Keon White. He's by all reports, a very smart, sometimes mercurial guy, and he understands his level of talent. So it's going to be interesting to watch how Keon White develops for the Patriots, because he's got all the talent in the world. And you just hope that they're able to tap it in the way that makes him literally a Pro Bowl level player for them. But it's got to be used more, what's the word there, Phil? It's got to be used more discriminately.
Judiciously?
Yeah, judicious. In a more productive manner. All right, that's enough, folks. You can see we're getting slap happy. It was an early day. We had an 8:30 pregame, so we're out. Phil, thank you.